Hey, this is kind of cool to be able to say. It's a battle of teams that weren't supposed to be here. Hello, everybody. Terry Bennett here on the Class 6A Division II State Championship Showdown preview show. We have DeSoto versus Austin Vandegrift. Two programs that have been really, really consistent over the last 5 to 10 years. Of course, DeSoto did win state a few years ago. But both of these teams have kind of been locked at the region level the last few years. They both finally break through, and they break all the way through to the state championship game. And I think this is going to be an absolute great game. And we, of course, have the whole crew on it. We're going to have Road to State. We're going to have a coach's interview with Drew Sanders, head coach of Austin Vandegrift. We're going to have the crew giving their picks, including Grant Goodwin, a sideline to sideline, Bret and the boys at NETSN, and then award-winning sports writer Matt Diggs also chimes in on this game. So we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to jump right into it. We're going to do Road to State for DeSoto. Marc Henry will be doing that for us from Texas Top Prospects, and then we'll have the head coach of the Austin Vandegrift Vipers, Drew Sanders, on to talk about his season, the big game last week against Katy, and this state championship and what it means to his program. We're going to do all that when we come back right here on the Class 6A Division II State Championship Preview Show, brought to you by L4FR Clothing and Power Plus Mouthguard.
Hey, football fans, Christmas is right around the corner. We have the perfect gift for your high school football fan in your life. Friday Night Legends, the board game. With Friday Night Legends, you can play the greatest high school teams of all time against each other based on their real stats. That means you can play the 1989 Odessa Permian Panthers of Friday Night Lights fame against the 2017 Mater Day team and really see who's the better team. Or what about Peyton Manning's Newman High School in New Orleans against Trevor Lawrence's Cartersville, Georgia team? There are thousands of teams in the library from all over the United States. Get your copy of Friday Night Legends at BoardGameLegends.com and be the hero of Christmas morning.
This is the Top Texas Prospect edition of Road to State for the LSG Network. Me, Marc Henry, and myself, my brother, my guy, my co-host, Matt Davidson. We're going to talk about the Road to State for the DeSoto Eagles. They are one of the top teams in the state, 13-2 overall, 6-1 in their district, and they made it to state. Let's talk about their schedule a little bit. Their first game was on the road in Oregon against the great St. Augustine team. They took care of business 35-10. And one of the toughest tests they had this year was against St. Francis Academy, a loss that I believe shaped their season. They took on South Oak Cliff, Skyline, and when they got to district, Waxahachie, Mansfield Legacy, all wins, and they put up 86 points against Lake Ridge in that district of doom. The only loss in district was to Duncanville, which was a game that turned their season around 41-17. And when the Eagles got to the playoffs, it was business as usual. They took care of Rockwall Heath 52-7. Tomball 38-14. Harker Heights, a big victory 60-24. And last week, the DeSoto Eagles, they flew high against Denton Guyer, one of the top teams in the state, had been ranked probably in one or two, depending on what ranking or what rankings that you looked at. These guys were number one in the country, number one in the state of Texas. They took care of business against DeSoto, and the DeSoto Eagles, they are headed to state. 13-2 on the season, 47-28 victory over Guyer. The defense played a big factor in those guys coming out on top. But the Eagles are not done yet. Shout out to my guy, Close Claude Mathis. He's a friend of the show. They have a record of 13-2, average about 43 points a game on the offensive side, giving up only 20 points on the defensive side. They've been to the state title game twice, won the championship in 2016, and now they're back at it going to Jerry World. This will be a 3 o'clock kickoff Saturday, December 17th. Matt, give me your thoughts about the Eagles and what you look forward to coming out this Saturday.
Yeah, I want to see how they do. Are they going to run the air raid? Or are they going to be real quick tempo? I want to see how they're able to run the ball because Katie had trouble with Vandegrift running the ball. And I know that Katie still had some big plays, and Vandegrift won by a field goal, and Katie still was able to run. But Vandegrift did enough. And I want to see how DeSoto does with Jonte Cook and Wisner and Cedric Harden. I want to see how DJ Bailey does. I want to see how those guys do on offense. You know, the game's going to be won in the trenches. So I think if you take down Denton Geyer, I think DeSoto is now the favorite, you know, coming into state, you know, and that's just the way I feel. Now it's going to be up to DeSoto to game plan for Vandegrift, and Vandegrift, you know, they're going to game plan for DeSoto. And so hopefully DeSoto will run some different plays that are not on film and be a little more creative. And I picked DeSoto to win in the Fort Worth Star Telegram pick'em. I picked DeSoto. I'm picking DeSoto right here on the preview Road to State Lone Star Gridiron edition Top Texas Prospect Show. But yeah, shout out to DeSoto, Camion Mathis on defense, Coach Claude Mathis' son. He's a twin. He's a very good DB, and I look for DeSoto's defense to really fly around. And we know, you know, Jeter, the camera guy, he does social media for DeSoto, so we know him. And you know, it's a good story for them to get back to state after always being really good in the mid 2010s and always getting there to play against either Kyler Murray or, you know, Skyline and then South Lake and DeSoto. They've had plenty of players go to the NFL, and so they're nothing new to this. And it's going to be really good to see DeSoto and their fan base come out. You know, of course, Friday night you'll have South Oak Cliff, and then the next day you'll have DeSoto play, and then against Vandegrift, and then also you'll have Duncanville playing at nighttime against North Shore. I think that's going to be also a big game. But yes, back to DeSoto. I think DeSoto is primed and ready, and if not now, then when. So we'll see what Vandegrift can do. And I'm going with DeSoto just based off of all the athletes that they have.
Man, I totally agree wholeheartedly. They put up 556 yards of offense against Geyer. 434 of that was on the ground. Of course, we know about DeAndre Tiger Ridden, led the Eagles in rushing with 224 yards and 2 touchdowns. DJ Bailey had a great game. The junior quarterback's been on the cusp of, you know, blowing the doors off this year. You know, over 3,000 yards passing, 40 touchdowns and only 4 interceptions on the season. Trey Wisner had a big game, 78 yards on the ground as well. But the story of the game was the defense. They limited Jackson Arnold to 37 yards on 20 carries. They played sound defense. Jamari Lay and Brandon Booker, the 2 linebackers, played a great game, limiting Jackson Arnold from giving his yards on the scramble or running the read option, the normal things that he's been doing to teams all summer or all fall, I'm sorry. But this was the tale of the tape. The defense is what won this game for DeSoto, and I think the defense will be able to carry these guys as well going into this game. A couple of guys, you know, that we mentioned already. You know, of course, everybody knows the 5-star recruit, Texas commit, Jonte Cook, one of the most talented receivers in the nation. Over 1,300 yards on a year, over 20 touchdowns. You know, we talked about Darius, DJ Bailey. You know, he's the catalyst that makes that engine run. And I talked about Brandon Booker. You know, he's one of the talented linebackers that sit there in the trenches and make plays for DeSoto. And you mentioned Camion Mathis, who's a recent UNT commit. This is a loaded team. They're set up to win. And you know, they've been screaming this and they've been talking about this and they've been setting themselves up. Shout out to my guy, Coach Swinney over there, one of the coaches that's been with the program for a long time. These guys are primed and ready, and we'll see at 3:00 on Saturday what the Eagles come out with. And I agree wholeheartedly that they're the favorite coming into this. This is one of the top teams in the state, and they proved it from wire to wire this year. And, you know, their road to state was a tough one. But, you know, if you go back and you listen and talk to Claude Mathis, which we have, this is what he set these guys up for. The season started off, you know, with them traveling to Oregon. They played a tough St. Francis team and took that loss and kept on ticking. They played South Oak Cliff. Their schedule was set up for this state run. They're prepared. Their road to state is 3 o'clock Saturday against Vandergrift. And that's your Road to the State, brought to you by the Top Texas Prospect Show.
Thanks to Mark and Matt. Check out their show, Texas Top Prospects. It's been on the network for 4 or 5 years now. And they do a great job. And they have shows from the in-season, off-season, all the seasons, talking all the prospects in the state of Texas. And so we do appreciate that. And thanks for the Road to the Show for DeSoto. All right, I sat down with the head coach of Vandergrift, Coach Drew Sanders, to talk about the big program-altering win against Katy last week and what's it mean to be in the state championship, and also what are his thoughts on DeSoto in this game. Here is the head coach of Austin Vandergrift, Drew Sanders, on the LSG Sports Network. All right, Coach, first off, congratulations. But before we talk about the season, before we talk about the state championship game, we've got to talk about last week. What a thrilling win against Katy. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's one of our biggest wins in our history. You know, it's a lot of people didn't pick us. We were all the prognosticators picked us to lose by 20 or less, around that. And it was just an amazing effort from top to bottom, defense, offense, and kicking game. Really, really proud of our guys. It can be an intimidating thing to go against a team that has won like Katy has, and it's 9 state titles and et cetera. My school has only been open 13 years. It's our 14th year, so they almost have as many state titles as we've been open.
Well, and you bring it up. You talk about their history and stuff. And Vandergrift, y'all have become very, very consistent. I think y'all have won, at least 10 wins 4 years in a row, 6 out of the last 8 years. But y'all had kind of been that region semifinal had kind of been y'all's glass ceiling. You finally break through, and you talk about it being the best win in the program history. Just making it past Katy, making it to the state championship in of itself. What does that mean for your program? Yeah,
you're right. I mean, we do have a good program. I'm very proud of being the head coach here, but we just couldn't break through for whatever reason. And so, it was nice to finally be able to break through that. And I think what it also does is it shows your younger kids that you can do this, this school. And it's kind of how Katy does it almost every year. Those programs that do that, it's because the other kids, they kind of expect to go to the state semifinals or better every year. And that's what I want to get to here.
Well, okay, so let's look at this season. At what point in this season did you go, hey, this might be that crew, this might be the group that finally breaks through?
We had to be a good Round Rock squad. Round Rock, I have a lot of respect for that program, and they always give us a game. We've played 5 times, and we've won 3 of them. So, and every game has come down to 1 or 2 scores. So, I felt like after we found a way to make the plays, I knew we would play well and be close. But you got to find a way to make the winning plays in big games like that. That was essentially for the district title. And once we did that, I kind of all right, this whole season could be really special. In addition to, heading into the season, I felt like that, but I had a lot of questions to answer on defense. We lost 8.5 starters. And so it was, and we only had 1 starter back on the offensive line. So, we had some question marks.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think y'all lost 4 or 5 D1 guys. You talk about having to rebuild the defense. That's kind of what you like to do. In fact, you've wrote books on the defense. But at the end of the day, I've been so impressed with what y'all have done offensively. Y'all have become almost an offensive juggernaut.
Yeah, they're playing really well. Obviously, we've got a big challenge this week, but they are playing very well. Our quarterback, of course, he was district MVP his junior year. So bringing him back was huge. And then, Ian Reed, our big tackle, was a great leader on the offense. To bring him back was big. And then, our running back, Alex Witz, has had a good season. And then, we knew Miles would be good. He played a lot last year, but he's really shown up and just had an amazing year.
All right. Well, you talked about who you're playing. Let's talk about it. When you look at DeSoto, what do you see?
Well, I see speed. I see athleticism. I see good coaching. I see kids that play really hard and are disciplined. There's a reason they're playing in the state championship. They've beaten some teams. I think they were underdogs last week against Geyer. Mm-hmm. They kind of, went out and played an amazing game. And so I think this is kind of a matchup that really no one expected to see, probably. If you had to pick it, all the prognosticators probably said Katy versus Geyer. And so it is. He probably feels a lot like me. He's probably proud of where they are and not satisfied, I'm sure. But they're a quality team with all kinds of speed. They have multiple Division I guys. Really, every skill position has someone with offers.
And they've played a tough schedule. And though their defense at times gives up points, I was very impressed that they held Jackson Arnold and that Geyer offense to 28 points, with 2 of those touchdowns kind of being late. Yeah.
They played really well. They can lock you down with their technique and their athleticism, the combination of that. And there's a lot of schools that have good athletes who don't play good technique. But Coach Mathis and his staff do a great job.
As a coach, for you personally, coaching in a state championship game, is this something you get nervous about?
This is going to sound funny, and like I don't like my job. I love my job, but I kind of have nerves every game, just because it's competition, and so I'm on edge every game day. My wife always says she doesn't want to be around me on Fridays because I'm always on edge. So I think that keeps me good, though, and keeps me sharp. And so, I've got my same nerves I always have. Maybe it might ramp up once I kind of am standing in Cowboy Stadium, probably. I'm just guessing. I've never done this before. But, nerves to me aren't a bad thing. I read something one time that somebody said, hey, nerves just mean you're about to do something that's important to you. And so that's what it is. This game's important to me. And we'll be on edge. Once the game starts, hey, it's just a normal old game. Play some football.
And we thank Coach Sanders for joining us. Of course, if you remember, maybe back in 2019, we had a Vandergrift Coaches Show. If you're a fan of a team or a coach listening or a booster club and you're interested in having a coaches show for your team next year, get a hold of me, Terry at LoneStarGridiron.com. And I'll tell you how we can make that possible in 2023. All right, we've got Road to the State. We have the coaches' interviews out of the way. So the next segment is going to be all the crew from Northeast Texas Sports Network, Lone Star Gridiron, all making our picks, who we think's going to win and why. We'll start with Chris Daly, and we'll work our way through the crew from there. Of course, Chris is the site owner of Lone Star Gridiron and has been since its inception. I think this is year 18, if I'm not mistaken. So here are the picks for this matchup.
Hi, this is Chris Daly. You know me from Lone Star Gridiron, but you may also know me from Board Game Legends. That's right. 2018, we came out with the game Friday Night Legends, in which originally it was just Texas high school football teams that you could play against each other in this board game based on their real stats. So you could take the 1983 Dangerfield team and you could play them against Johnny Manziel's Kerrville Tivy team, or maybe that great 2015 Katy Tigers team. Whichever teams you want, you can play. It's a great board game. It has expanded now and covers the entire country. In fact, we just had some German teams added to the thing because Germany, there's a lot of U.S. military bases, so there's a lot of U.S. schools there, and they play high school football. So weirdly enough, we have international high school football teams now in that game. But what we like to do is play these state championships using Friday Night Legends. We just didn't have time this time around because it's been a very busy, very wonderful Texas high school football season. So instead, I'm going to tell you what I think would happen if we had played these games. All right? And rest assured, within a week of state championship being over, all of these teams that have appeared at the 2022 UIL state championship football games, all of these teams will be available for Friday Night Legends. You can get them at FridayNightLegends.com or BoardGameLegends.com. All right, 6A Division II, we have DeSoto at 13-2 against Austin Vandegrift at 14-1. You know, Vandegrift coming off a surprise win, at least to the rest of the state, not to Coach Drew Sanders and the Vipers, a surprise win over the Katy Tigers to get here to the state championship. DeSoto, they've had a tough road. They're in a district with Duncanville, so that's one of their losses. But they're tested. They're very battle-tested. They're strong. They're looking good. My heart wants Vandegrift to pull this off just because it's historic for that team and for another team in Central Texas to win after you've had 3 years of Austin Westlake winning. The Vandegrift winning would be a big deal. But I just don't see how that DeSoto team can get beat. I think it's that good of a team. And I tell you, if the result is not the one you like at the end of the day, pick up Friday Night Legends, replay the game, make the decisions you think should have been made, and see if you can win with the team that didn't.
Hey, football fans, Christmas is right around the corner. We have the perfect gift for your high school football fan in your life. Friday Night Legends, the board game. With Friday Night Legends, you can play the greatest high school teams of all time against each other based on their real stats. That means you can play the 1989 Odessa Permian Panthers of Friday Night Lights fame against the 2017 Mater Day team and really see who's the better team. Or what about Peyton Manning's Newman High School in New Orleans against Trevor Lawrence's Cartersville, Georgia team? There are thousands of teams in the library from all over the United States. Get your copy of Friday Night Legends at BoardGameLegends.com and be the hero of Christmas morning.
Merry Christmas, George!
All right, we've heard from Chris. Now let's hear from the boys at NETSN. That's Bret Swinney and crew as they talk all things Northeast Texas, but they're helping us this week with all these state championship shows, and so they give their pick of this game between DeSoto and Austin Vandegrift.
Thanks, Terry. Up next, we have 6A Division II, 13-2 DeSoto versus 14-1 Vandegrift. Not at all the teams that we expected to be in this matchup, as I thought Geyer and Katy would be here. But these two teams had other plans. I'm going with Corey's barely win theory. Vandegrift kicks a field goal at the horn to beat Katy. So that is definitely in effect. So I'm going with DeSoto. That's going to make it 2 for 2 that I'm going with for Dallas so far in the state games. Corey, who you got?
I'm also going Dallas, all Dallas in this one. DeSoto takes this one pretty handily. What a surprise. The actual Katy Tigers aren't in the championship. They lost against Vandegrift. That was a surprise that they shocked the state. But nonetheless, here we go. DeSoto all the way, baby. Let's go.
Vince, who you got?
All Dallas, everything. So I'm going DeSoto. Like you said, the barely win theory is in effect. So this shouldn't be but I don't want to call it a cakewalk for DeSoto based off that theory, but I will say that I think that DeSoto will take this game and put it away probably by the third quarter.
Kyle, who you got?
I thought Denton Geyer was the best team in 6A Division II all season long, and DeSoto put a whooping on them. So because of that, I'm taking DeSoto over Vandegrift. Happy for Vandegrift to get to the state game, though, but I'm taking DeSoto.
All right, those are our picks. Back to you, Terry.
And now my co-host Grant Goodwin and I, we break down this game in only the way that sideline to sideline can, and we tell you who wins and why. Let's turn our attention to Class 6A Division II, Grant. Out of the sideline to sideline area, but you and I both love high school football, all classes.
Especially in the playoffs. And we had a Vandegrift show for a few years ago, so I'm absolutely happy for Drew Sanders. Claude Mathis at DeSoto, finally, he's not quite reached the Reginald Samples, can't win the big one, but he's kind of there, especially when he leaves for a year and DeSoto immediately wins state.
Right.
I think that's something that's kind of hung over him. This is one of those matchups that I don't know, and I mean that in that with either one of these teams, I could see either one of these teams winning in a close one. I could also see either one of these teams winning in a game that kind of gets spread out.
Yeah, I'm unsure because Vandegrift goes in and beats Katy, and man, did you see that field goal? How close it was to getting blocked, but
blocked
it went through, and they beat the almighty Katy. Well, DeSoto beats a Denton Geyer team that appeared to me to be on a mission.
That's
to
what you
finally get one, right?
For Jackson Arnold.
For Jackson Arnold. And DeSoto just wins handily, 47-28. So that does make this a difficult choice here. I'm going Vandegrift. I love their athleticism as well. I watched about a half of this, kind of going back and forth between the Longview Alito game, and I watched about half of this Vandegrift-Katy game, and man, Vandegrift gets the ball on the edges, they can make some hay. Now, this DeSoto defense is quick, so it might not be as easy. I don't know. Katy was very good up front. DeSoto appears to be pretty good up front as well, but I'm taking Vandegrift in a close one.
You know, the only thing I have an issue with the Katy game is I thought C.E. King kind of exposed Katy the week before when they threw for 470 yards. But let's remember, first off, DeSoto's played a hell of a schedule, but they've given up points at times.
Yeah.
And so I think that in a game like this where I think defense matters, I'm going Vandegrift. Drew Sanders, the head coach, he's literally wrote books on defense. He's considered one of the best 4-2-5 guys in the state of Texas. Mm-hmm. He has books on Amazon. They're really good reads, but he literally teaches other coaches his systems. When coaches trust you to do that, that tells you what you have. And I'm like you. I think people are sleeping on the speed and the athleticism of this Vandegrift team. This is not some team from Central Texas that's, all slow. And I mean, this team is fast. Now, are they as good as Jonte Cook? No, they're not. Jonte Cook might be the best guy on the field. But again, Drew Sanders and that defensive squad, I think that they can game plan. I think Vandegrift wins in what I think might be considered a slight upset. I haven't really seen a lot of people. I think a lot of people are like us. This is just a game nobody was expecting, so we're kind of confused by the matchup.
Yeah.
And we will finish up this preview show with the Pullman Award-winning 2022 Sports Writer of the Year, Matt Diggs, as he gives his interesting take on this game. All of his takes are always interesting. Check him out on Twitter at Professor Diggs. He is absolutely a fun follow and a good friend, and he's been covering high school football for 20 years now, and this is what he loves to do, talk it. All right, Matt. We finally have one. We have a battle of two teams that were not here. Vandegrift has never been here. Vandegrift's only been open for 12 years. But not only is it two teams that haven't been here, DeSoto has won a state championship. Been a long time ago. If I say 5 years ago, 6 years ago. But not only is this a game of newcomers, so to speak, but I think this is one of the really, really interesting games because I don't have a feel for this one at all.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, we were all kind of anticipating the epic names of Denton Guyer versus Katy. Like, oh, that's going to be a fun game, and what's going to happen there? And now we got DeSoto and Vandegrift, and we're all kind of rubbing our chins like, what is this going to be? But I had some intel as part of what I do in working with the Inside High School Sports Houston thing, that at least the kind of the insiders there were not very high on Katy.
Yeah.
And I had heard that for a couple of weeks. Like, this is, you kind of even saw it against C.E. King where, that was like a 35-34 game going into the fourth quarter. They scored a couple scores late and made it look bigger than it was. And then, Vandegrift was able to get out on them and kind of get into this offensive shootout. And it looked really, it looks better than it is. But again, DeSoto, my biggest problem with DeSoto all year has been their inconsistency.
Yeah.
At times, they look real great. And you look at them and go, okay, this is a really good team. Then they play Pflugerville Weiss, and you're like, what's going on there? And then they play Waxahachie. What's going on here? And then you look at what they did against Rockwall Heath and you go, okay, well, if they play like that at certain times, they're going to be really, really hard to beat. And then the way they beat Guyer, they're going to look like they're going to be really hard to beat. But can they do that in the biggest stage for 48 minutes? I don't have 100% confidence they can do that, but I know they're capable of doing that. It's one of those games, if you put DeSoto at their 100% max against Vandegrift at their 100% max, DeSoto's probably a 2 or 3 score favorite. But again, like we talked about with Brock earlier, they haven't consistently been at that max enough to where you can put consistent faith that they're going to be able to do that. So there are definitely pathways for Vandegrift to win this game, but I think it's going to be more of a reflection on what DeSoto doesn't do versus what Vandegrift does do, because I don't think Vandegrift at their best can beat DeSoto at their best. And I think DeSoto, maybe even at 80 or 90% playing with their food, can beat Vandegrift. So Vandegrift's going to have to find a way to get a couple of turnovers. They're going to have to hope that DeSoto is a little bit sleepy in the first half, or enjoying looking at the big stadium. They're going to have to hope something happens like that. Even DeSoto at that point where they got up on Denton Guyer, they got up on 19-0. Well, after that, it was an even game after that. So can they stay consistently at that high level, or are they going to play around with their food? I like DeSoto, but I'm worried about them, and I don't feel 100% confident about that. But I think their talent is just significantly better than Vandegrift's.
And that is our Class 6A Division II State Championship preview show. I do appreciate everybody that helped work on it, NETSN and the crew. Of course, Chris Daly, Marc Henry, Matt Davidson, Matt Diggs, Grant Goodwin. And we all appreciate you, the listeners. Again, a banner year here in 2022 for Lone Star Gridiron. And we say that every year because each year we keep growing. And we know why, and it's because of the fans. And we appreciate that so much. And we hope that you keep tuning in and come back in 2023. Because remember, the off-season starts, but football never rests here in Texas. So we're going to be putting out content year-round like we have been. And that's going to do it. So if you're going to the game, safe travels in your holiday plans. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, happy whatever it is you celebrate. Celebrate it well, celebrate it safely. Until next time, I'm Terry Bennett. This has been the Class 6A Division II State Championship Preview Show on the LSG Sports Network.